Hello and welcome to my video all about how to knit chevron patterned lace. As with all lace knitting, this pattern combines yarn overs and decreases to create that lovely lacy effect. In this particular example, we're going to be using SSK decreases. I would recommend using a lightweight or fine yarn because that best accentuates the delicate look of lace. Okay, so to start the chevron lace stitch, you need to cast on a multiple of 10 and then add 1. So in my case, I'm doing 2 times 10, which is 20, plus 1, which is 21 stitches. But please note, you can't just have a single multiple of 10. So you can't just cast on 11 stitches. It must be a minimum of 21 stitches, which is what I'm going to use. So I cast on 21 stitches, using the long tail cast on method. Because this pattern is worked in stockinette stitch, the first row and every other odd numbered row is just going to be purl stitches. So that's all we do for row number 1, purl stitches. For row number 2, we repeat the following. Knit 5 stitches, and then we do a yarn over. So we take the yarn from the back of the needles, between the needles to the front. And then we do an SSK decrease. To do this, you need to slip 2 stitches knitwise. So you take the right hand needle up through the top stitch as if to knit, and then slip that stitch onto the right hand needle. And you do that twice. You then take your left needle into the front of those 2 slipped stitches, and then you knit those 2 stitches together. If you would like a slower demonstration of the SSK, please feel free to look at my video on that technique. So now what we've essentially done is a yarn over, which is a single increase, and then an SSK, which is a single decrease, and those then balance each other out. So the number of stitches overall doesn't increase or decrease. And then we knit 3 stitches. You then need to repeat those 4 steps until you only have 1 stitch left on the left hand needle. So I'm going to do that repeating section again, which is as follows. Knit 5, yarn over, SSK, and then knit 3. And when you only have 1 stitch left, you just do 1 knit stitch. Then we do row 3, which is of course just purl stitches. And then we move on to row 4, which is as follows. Knit 3, a K2 tog decrease, which just consists of knitting 2 stitches together, a yarn over, which is the same as before, where you take the yarn from the back of the needles to the front, knit 1, and you can see the yarn comes from the front of the needles round to the back in order to complete that first knit stitch. And it's that action of wrapping the yarn around the right hand needle that completes the yarn over. And then we do another yarn over, then an SSK, so slip 2 stitches knitwise, and then use your left hand needle to knit those 2 slip stitches together, and then knit 2 stitches. And then you follow that repeating section of pattern again until you only have 1 stitch remaining on the left hand needle. So again, that's knit 3, K2 tog, i.e. knit 2 together, then a yarn over, then knit 1, yarn over, SSK, and then knit 2. Then, when you only have one stitch remaining on the left hand needle, you just do a knit stitch. And that's row 4 completed. And row 5 is just purl stitches. For row 6, we first knit 2 stitches, then do a K2 tog, aka knit 2 together, then a yarn over, then knit 3, then another yarn over, an SSK, and then knit 1. And then you follow that repeating section of pattern again and again until you only have one stitch remaining. So that's K2, K2 tog, yarn over, K3, yarn over, SSK, K1. And then when you only have one stitch remaining, you do a knit stitch. And that's row 6. And row 7 is just purl stitches. And then we're on to row number 8, which is as follows. Knit 1, knit 2 together, yarn over, knit 5, yarn over, and then an SSK. And then you follow this repeating section of pattern again and again until you only have one stitch remaining. So that's K1, K2 tog, yarn over, knit 5, yarn over, SSK. And then for the last stitch, you just do a knit stitch. And that is row 8. Row 9 is just purl stitches, and then we're finally onto the last row, which is row 10. Row 10 starts with a knit 2 together decrease, then we do a yarn over, and then we knit 7 stitches. That's the start of the row completed, and now we get on to the repeating section of the row, which is as follows. Yarn over, then we do an SK2PO decrease. Unfortunately, I messed this stitch up slightly on camera, so some of it is missing. If you need to see a slower demo, please have a look at my other video. But hopefully you can understand how to do it from this little demo. So first you slip a stitch knitwise. Then you knit 2 together. So now on the right hand needle, you have 2 stitches that you've just made. The top one being the knit 2 together stitch, and the one below that being a slip stitch. And now we're going to use the left hand needle to pick up the slip stitch and take it over the top of the K2 tog above it and off the end of the needle. Just make sure that the K2 tog stitch remains on the right hand needle. We then do a yarn over, and then we knit 7 stitches. And that concludes the repeating section of this row. So you just repeat yarn over, SK2PO, yarn over, knit 7 until you only have 2 stitches remaining. And then you just yarn over, and to finish do an SSK decrease. And that's all 10 rows completed. You then just repeat those 10 rows for as long as you want. I'm going to do another full pattern repeat so you can see what the pattern properly looks like. Okay, so I've done 2 repeats now, and you can clearly see the chevron lace pattern. Because the pattern is in stockinette stitch, the edges do curl in a little bit. So if you were using this pattern as part of a knitting project, then you would want to put a border around your pattern, for instance in garter stitch or seed stitch, just to make your knitting more stable. I really hope you've had fun following along with this pattern, and thank you very much for watching.